I've got an illness, I need to cancel my membership. It's like an auto divert to, okay, yeah. There's no question of, well, what's wrong?
This year at PerformX, the Gym Owners Forum took their community on the road, and we actually hosted our very own networking community event right in the heart of the show. Now, the conversations that we were having on the day were with doctors, gym owners, industry experts, and suppliers, all with the ultimate goal of educating, supporting, and uplifting the industry. Now, over the weeks following PerformX, what we'll do so that you guys don't miss out is be sharing those conversations that we had with those people on the stage. So without further ado, let's jump right into it.
Karl, welcome to the Gym Owners Forum stage at PerformX. Thank you so much for joining us today. You spoke last year at the Gym Owners Workshop in Dublin, and I just wanted to reel off some of the quick stats that you'd said in the talk, because I thought they set a really good precedent for everything else you spoke about. So the annual cancellation rate was at 28 to 30%, and half of those cancellations were due to medical conditions. Roughly 85% of pre-term cancellations were for medical reasons. And with 12-month contracts, the average term completed before cancellation was only 6 months. So yeah, health issues seem like obviously an inescapable reality of life. I think everyone knows that, and they will always affect many of us. I'm sure you can read off some more stats as well. But if illness and injury are becoming the major drivers of cancellations, why do gyms tend to see this as something that they can't actually influence themselves?
Yeah, I think it's more that they don't understand or they don't ask the questions. When we spoke last year in Dublin, if you go and cancel something, or you speak to someone and say, oh, I've got an illness, I need to cancel my membership, it's like an auto divert to, okay, yeah. There's no question of, well, what's wrong? Can we support? Do you want to open up more to us? Did you know that actually, if it's, say, for example, it's cardiac related, of which there's 7 million people in the UK, diabetes related, 5 million people, 1 in 2 have cancer at a certain level in their life. Like, if any of those pieces are the reason why someone's cancelling, no one asks them if they can help. And that might be everything from, there's a support group there's a structure. Do you know we have a classic, we host cardiac rehab? Do you know we have a specialist here that's trained that can help you through? Maybe don't cancel your membership, let's just pause it, half it, reduce the rate for a few months, just come and go as you can. Even if it's walking on a treadmill or having a coffee with us, it's those pieces. I just think it's the fear factor for most of the gym operators where they don't want to ask that question.
Yeah.
But ultimately their member is a member, right? They're part of their community, and if you engage, you could really get to the point whereby you may understand, drive retention up, and actually get a more engaged audience for a completely different sector.
I mean, yeah, so it's about creating a more supportive environment, and we preach about community like it's a buzzword we use every 5 seconds. How can gyms kind of start to create that supportive environment to maybe make those conversations a little bit more comfortable from the operator?
I think there's an element of staff training, and that could be the staff on the floor, the PTs, the trainers, the coaches, have a dedicated professional who's maybe done one of the qualifications. Train the front of house staff who may take that call. Membership management companies can obviously have the same training as well. And just can say, have you seen someone? Or more importantly, have sessions, have an hour a week, which is like a supportive group. Do you know what I mean? Create the hubs within the hub. There's a coffee morning here, a bit like the Macmillan mornings that happen in various places once a year. Have like a regular health hub, do you know what I mean? Or have an advisory session in a club, or it's those elements, I think, that just offer them an alternative before they cancel. Get them back in once, show them what else could happen. Show them that the actual memberships around them are filled with people the same. Like I said, if 50% of the population have probably gone through one of these experiences, there's going to be other people they can earn support from. I've noticed some leisure centres locally to here have started advertising cardiac rehab classes, cancer rehab classes, and it's those kind of bits. It's an hour a week on your schedule. Like, it could change your membership dates basically.
And it's not even if it's impacting one person. We were talking about events in general, but actually if this is kind of more impactful, even if it's impacting that singular person, it is making a massive difference, and actually that person is then appreciative and a lifelong member essentially. So like in practice, that's all fantastic, and that's what you're implementing. But I think people, as you say, is 50%. So there is probably a 50%, probably less, of people that haven't experienced that kind of illness within their family or with themselves. So it can be a taboo subject to talk about, and an uncomfortable subject even for people that have had negative experiences. So how do we kind of ease and train members of staff to like broach that subject and feel comfortable about doing it as well?
A bit of coaching and a little bit of scripting. You know, if you role played it out, someone phoned and said, I need to cancel my membership because I've got a health issue. The first question shouldn't be okay. It should be like, well, you know, do you mind disclosing any more on it and see if we can support you more? And that support will really tip someone over, whether that's from a house member, whether that's a PC, whether it's a coach. Again, someone in a service centre looking after a membership database or a direct debit, like just ask that one question. And if they say no, it means they're probably not willing to talk about it in their journey. But if they say, oh, well, actually, I've been diagnosed with this, or my GP's told me this, then if they're a bit intelligent, you know, and they've got a little bit of intel behind that, they can say, well, do you know that actually exercise could help here? Or do you know that, you know, we have a mindful hub here? Or do you know we have a class here that might be for you? And, you know, you don't need to maybe keep the same membership level for a long period of time. We can reduce it down and we just access that. But at least let's see if we can set you up on that profile. But I think that first question, rather than being back to your taboo point, you know, it doesn't need to be taboo, but if you don't ever kind of milk out whether they're comfortable to have the conversation, you'll never get to the point of being able to manage them a little bit more.
I mean, there are obviously levels to it, and if someone's extremely uncomfortable, then like, you know, understandable. But is there a level of kind of poking and prodding is probably the wrong, like probing questions, I guess. Should gyms try and dig into those, even if someone's a bit hesitant to answer? Should gyms be trying to dig into it?
Yeah, I think so. If you look at the economics of it, like it costs a lot of money to get gym membership. You know, there's a lot of spend to get a member. There's a lot of investment, and obviously, if you lose someone, the chance of getting them back can be quite difficult. You know, or at least what happens is if they do come back to a gym, then they've made up other facilities. So keeping them in, I think, is really important. So I think within Right, you kind of, particularly intern, you know, someone signed a contract as an intern. It's not that you want to make it easy for them to leave in a way. Like get them to understand they're valuable, they're important. So a bit of probing, I think, is there. You know, the advice and the amount of health advice you maybe get from a GP or a doctor or a medical practitioner is normally your ill rest.
Yeah.
Whereas actually the data is the other way. Like, you know, again, we mentioned the three big things like cardiac, rehab, cancer and diabetes. All of those are helped by exercise, but the instant approach from medically trained professionals sometimes is de-risk completely. Whereas actually a little bit of structure and support, and we let them to see the other side, that the gym could be a good environment for them, socially, community-wise, but also fitness and health-wise. And so I think that probe is right, but I'd always start with the thing like, do you mind telling us what it is so we can see if we can help you more? And then you suddenly become a supportive system rather than a transactional system.
It seems like there's a bit of a disconnect, because like speaking from my own personal experience of John, and obviously like knowing yourself, all the people that are kind of, you know, living a very high standard and quality of life now, that have lived with an illness like that, they were all kind of like, no, I'm going to fight it, I'm not going to rest. They were all very like proactive in how they went about changing their diet, changing their exercise. Obviously they weren't smashing the gym, but how it seems like there's a bit of a disconnect between GPs, what they're promoting, and well, what people who are actually going through it are kind of experiencing. How do you kind of bridge that gap essentially, and is there a way that we can kind of work with GPs on this and become a bit of a third space for that and connect it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, many years ago, like most of the GPs started putting exercise referral programs in. So, and they still have them, particularly around cardiac rehab, you know, and stroke actually. There's quite a lot of rehab places around that where once they're through a certain stage of recovery, they're actually referred to an exercise professional or a facility. So it's understanding if the local GPs have those hubs. So if you're you're running a club and you've got a local GP practice that are running those hubs, make sure you're talking to them. Make sure they are advising people to come to you, and then it's a two-way relationship then where you can upscale the GP or the GP practice of the health centre's knowledge, but it also means you may be going to get members who come to you who appreciate that the GP trusts you because you're their recommended outlet. I think no one can deny the positive impact of exercise on most health conditions. The other side of that coin is making sure that within the business you've got someone who is maybe a little bit more aware or elevating the status or qualification to be able to be the trusted go-to. You know, it's not necessarily someone who, and you can, again, role playing, like if you come straight out and you go straight into the 18-year-old who's literally just in their gym for, they're probably brilliant for most people. If someone's coming in with a medical condition, they're going to feel like they need a bit more of a trusted companion. But if you've got someone who can do that, they're also working with a GP, then that's great. And the one thing that was really positive in Ireland when we spoke at the forum there was 4 or 5 of those practitioners in the room. So people had started to invest, and they work with that special population. They work with the people who really can benefit from what they do. And that's a little bit of coaching or a bit of explanation or a bit of education, but also, you know, how hard do I go? How hard do I push? What class should I do? And it's that advisory, Sam. I think if you've got something in the club that can do that, great.
There's an element of like a kind of, not a campaign necessarily that we're doing, but it's really what we're trying to do is elevate the standards of the independent gym to have the industry taken a little bit more seriously by like the government and things like that. And I think that's really like the trust comes from that aspect of it, of if you're a gym owner that is actually showing care, going towards your GP, contacting them, setting up these programs, and that's really the deciding factor. And so then for things like hidden conditions where it's not obvious to the person on the front desk, does building that trust and elevating that standard naturally just then bring people with hidden conditions to be more open about it with people within the club as well?
Yeah, I think it gets rid of the stigma, you know, from the diagnosis and the medical facilities point of view. I think if you've got an illness, it instantly becomes a stigma. You know what I mean? You've got this, it's going to be, they're probably more on the side of pessimists than optimists. And so therefore instantly the individual goes pessimist. So actually I should resting's best, don't do anything, just I'll sit and not engage. Whereas actually it's the other way, you know, like if you have a really poor diagnosis, like your dad went through, like I went through, you know, you suddenly become isolated from a community and isolated from people. And actually going into a gym and having a coffee morning and finding a few other people who are like-minded, doing a training class or a walk or something, things like that, suddenly it keeps you reconnected. It gives you a different positive vibe and a different story. It helps put you more in a better mindset, and mindset is so important. So I think building that and building that trust and building a connection, but also realising that there is that potential working partnership, because it definitely, not everyone's aware. I worked on the GP referral program in the West Midlands in 1996, giving away my age a little bit, straight out of uni. But we worked with cardiac and stroke rehab, and it was a specialised program. It was on trial, and the GP would refer the people that would really benefit from the help for 12 sessions. 4 were coaching, 4 were like almost a one-on-one PT walkthrough. Not always in a gym environment, might just be in a walk around somewhere or a stroll on a treadmill discussing life. And then 4 was actually trying to re-engage them back into the community, within the health hub. Now, those things have been around for a while, but I think sometimes the independent operators may not realise they are there. Even some of the big operators perhaps don't realise they can, engage or, execute on that level, but they're definitely there. The health, the NHS, it's in their agenda. Do you know what I mean? You need to get people active. You need to get them moving as a pre and a treatment. So I think it's just about building that kind of communication flow and becoming a trusted partner. And there's hundreds of people getting diagnosed every day with stuff that actually in a gym environment, they can improve their health so easily before them even just straight as medication.
There seems like a fairly like counterproductive way of like when you get diagnosed with something, it's what you touched on earlier about you get diagnosed with a condition and then you kind of isolate yourself, and that obviously comes internally because it's such like a jarring thing. How can I guess the person themselves kind of try and change their way of thinking, but also how can the gyms kind of try and wean that out of them also to try and make it a more collaborative thing? Because it seems so like silly's the wrong word, but silly that like you become isolated when you need the most support at that moment.
It is hard, right? It's like really, really hard. I think the key is that you either are going to fight or fly at that moment. And so instantaneously, human nature is going to move you one way or the other. But what's really important to understand is while you've had a diagnosis, most GPs will say get a second opinion. So they're also advising you to go and look or talk more or engage. What I would say is that anytime you have a diagnosis, you need to own your own journey. Like, I think a lot of people just go, well, I'm going to instantly rely on what I'm told. No one then does the research or does the understanding or maybe dives in a little bit more and goes, well, actually, what positive changes or impacts can I make that give me a better outlook? The stuff that we've done with What Next, as you know, and talking to your dad, we both went on that journey. I trust what you're saying, but I'm also going to see what else I could do to just give me a better opportunity or give the positive outcomes a higher chance of being delivered. And from that perspective, I think we've almost become a nation of, well, this is what they've said and that's what I'm going to do. There's no healthy challenge back. But actually it should be have I made the right choices? If you're talking about cardiac, it could be for any multiple number of reasons in your lifestyle. It could be pre-diagnosed, it could be genetic, it could be inherited. But have you done enough to minimise the impact it's going to have on your life? If you're pre-diabetic, is your diet in case, but actually am I exercising enough because my diet isn't great? Maybe exercise will help. But again, they're all things that a GP isn't there to talk to you about health and well-being and lifestyle. They haven't, unfortunately, had that training as part of their course. They're not dietitians, they're not physical exercise experts. They can only refer to someone they trust, and if there's no one they can trust and no one they know, they probably can't do anything else. So it's up to the individual. So I think creating a positive framework where the individual can go, do you know what, I need to own a bit of this myself. It allows you to then go and seek some better advice or some better intervention.
The fight or flight example is actually it's very easy to kind of understand it that way, because actually the people that fight are going to be the people that are going to hopefully get better, whereas I think the flight people, it's like glide is probably a better term. Is the goal for gyms necessarily maybe to start targeting the flight people that are maybe a little bit more less understanding and try and coaching them into?
Yeah, I think there's an element for both. Like the people who are fight, they may not come for a few months.
Yeah.
But it's understand they're still valuable.
Yeah.
So, they're pausing the membership. Again, ask that question. Do you mind me asking why? Is there something we can help with? Is there something we can support with? Hey, like the best membership thing in the world would maybe pause the membership for 3 months and then while they go through a medical intervention, but say, but feel free to come and have a coffee. Feel free to come and join this group. Still value you.
Yeah.
They'll probably never leave you. Do that. And what's it really costing? But it is the people that fly or glide, to your point, the ones who just go, I'm going to take that advice. And it's been comfortably enough as an environment to go, well, back to the opening kind of conversation we had. But you could do more. Do you could do this, or let's have a conversation. Why don't you come just have a consultation with us again like you would as a new member? And let's go through that again and see what we can do for you. And if it's pausing your membership for 6 months, pause your membership, but don't try to get them not to cancel, because it's going to be better for them. And ultimately, as a business, it's going to be better for you.
And it's just naturally when someone's gone, it's so much harder to get them back. Does the name Martin Shkreli mean something to you? Yeah. So obviously, he's a prime example of, in 2015, for people that don't know, he raised the price of AIDS medication from like 30p to something, he inflated it by about 3,000 times, something like that, to way more expensive. And obviously that's a classic case of someone profiting off business, and he got a lot of backlash, rightly so. And I think people like that really kind of don't do anything for businesses that want to necessarily be seen as profiting off of illness. So there's obviously that very like fine line between as a gym owner, it might feel a bit uncomfortable to say like, oh God, we're actually profiting off of these conditions. So how do you make that conversation a bit more manageable and a bit more better feeling inside for the gym owner?
I think it's being human. Like if you're in a gym environment, you're taking that call. Like, is someone cancelling for some health reason or some medical condition? Like, imagine them as a family member, or a brother, or a sister, or a friend. You wouldn't just go, okay. You wouldn't, would you? You're human. Go back to your human nature. And I think showing that to your audience or your member, that instantly gets over it's not you just money making. It shows you care. I think then the follow-up conversations of, well, we'd still love you to be a member, and in 6 months' time, you'd be probably much better if you were back into a routine. Let's help us support you, but let's also help us support you now. Whether that, like I said, whether that be a pause or a half membership or whatever it may be, something that makes them feel like they're always welcome, that they're invited. Make sure that you tag them in your membership database or your CRM and go, we just need to check in every month and say, are you okay? Do you know what I mean? Because you don't know if they're doing that alone, you don't know if they're doing it without support. But those little bits, it's just a human element. Like, if it's your neighbour or someone, if someone fell over in the street, most people will go, oh, are you okay? If someone phones up and goes, I've got to cancel for a medical condition, I can tell you when I cancel my membership, they just went, okay.
From a kind of Ashbourne perspective, I know that is kind of the protocol for a lot of gyms, but it is the best gyms, in the country, have that community element within them, and they really do have that strong, like a lot of them refer to their members as like the family, that they're part of it. So why is it that then having that family within the gym and helping people from the health standpoint, why is that the right thing to do? I mean, it seems like an obvious question, but
I just think it's about building a network, a community of trust, a care, like a care circle, whatever you want to call it. It's more about them knowing that they're not alone. Regardless of how difficult the diagnosis is. And like you said, sometimes it's really noticeable what it is, and sometimes it's not noticeable at all. And sometimes someone will have the wildest health condition and they would look like the healthiest person. So I think from that perspective, it's actually more about just showing and care and building, like you said, building that community. For me, that's just key. Just treat people like people, not like a membership number. And I think your database and membership will look after yourself. And actually, as we know, retention is the king. So if you can retain clients, and actually if you treat someone really good today who are going through a terrible time or a really tough, challenging point in their life, the chance of them telling everyone to come to you or join you or be part of your community or organisation is exponentially higher. And surely you'd want that.
I think people that come out of the other side of it as well, and they're better off for it, that they do have a kind of aura around them. I mean, you look at John and yourself, honestly, and it's a very, like, it changes the way people kind of act, I think, and they're a lot more friendly. And kind of going a little bit off piste here, but it naturally will just create that attraction from the member to the gym, and then vice versa, people to trusting that member because they've been through something, they understand it, and they're generally happy. So I completely understand it. I think looking at the facts and figures you were talking about earlier, what percentage of members would you say, don't give me an exact figure if we don't have it, but lose members through like the preventable medical conditions?
Well, I mean, look, the stat you quoted at the front, like, so 85% of people who cancel in term are like for a health condition. It's a big number, right?
Yeah.
What gyms probably wash through 10 to 15% of membership every year. So there's probably at least 90% of that number is probably linked to a health issue. So there's a lot of numbers in there that are just washing through for maybe, we also talk about dormant members or people who kind of go once a month and they're happy and it is what it is. But the actual people that really cancel, and sometimes they can be high impact members, right? They can be people who are in every day, they're a face of, they're well known. It's not just what you lose as a one person member, it's also what you might lose as that community. I think the point that you just made in the previous kind of summary, like, if you can have someone in the club that's been through something, suddenly becomes a referral for somebody else going through it, if they're willing to share their journey and talk about it, it's inspirational.
Yeah.
I think some clubs have become a little bit, and it's not against anyone, they become a bit transactional. But where the days of like, we'll talk about run clubs and all the other stuff happen. Where's the like walk club? Where's the health club? Where's the cardiac rehab? Or where's the Q&A with the person who's just done something amazing? It's all those little bits. You might only get 10 people sat around, but hey, those 10 people are high impact. So there's also those bits as well.
I suppose it's also people that are on the other side of that journey. They naturally, like, the walk club probably is more of an appealing thing to them, and actually it builds that greater community, because it's not just the people that are going through it right now, it's the people that have been through it, the family members of the people that probably will go through it, and it's a much wider scale than just like those specific people you're targeting, as you say. I want to kind of look forward to the future. Get out your crystal ball. In terms of the next kind of 5-10 years of gyms and the health and fitness industry, where do you think the direction of that will go?
Okay, I'm going to go short, medium, and long.
Okay.
Short term, anyone that doesn't understand the impact of weight loss medication, GLP-1, you need to be all over it. It's becoming so popular. You only have to look at the data from the US of how many people adopted it. The trials on oral rather than injectable weight loss are nearly 3 stages to be approved. Once you can pop a pill and it has the same effect as everyone else is doing on Ozempic, then it's going to be impactful, and that will impact everyone. But the most important thing is the side effects and the after effects of that. People aren't eating as much, they're being a bit malnourished, there's sarcopenia. If you're female going through that, obviously, peri or pre-menopause, then, it can have detrimental health effects, particularly around bone density and osteoporosis. So from that perspective, for me, if you don't understand the impact of that, and actually the importance of the gym environment has for still maintaining walking, keeping muscle condition on, and on the basis that lean muscle tissue and having a good lean muscle tissue to fat ratio in the body is super beneficial to health anyway. If you don't understand that impact, I think it's big. Everyone can see who's doing it. You can see the nature of what happens to people when they do it. They generally lose structure and muscle density and shape. So the gym's going to be really important. I think the second piece of that is that they predict that by 2030, 50% of the population, regardless of the cancer stats, will have a chronic medical condition if we carry on the current journey. So actually, the midterm is also understanding how do we work with those people to bring that number down. So let's think about how we prevent that. Preventative exercise rather than curative, but also in how we use like health tracker for that. So the amount of people where health tracker and the data isn't integrated, and no people like MyZone and everybody else have that. But what does the health tracking data say? How do you personalize programs? What to do for that? Is that an education planning, like where someone goes, "Oh, my sleep data is terrible, it says I'm going to have a bad day." Most people don't know what sleep data really means, but they're all wearing a wearable. So what does that sleep data really mean? Do some education again, like a little bit of a form, a little bit of workshop, upskill your members' understanding. You'll feel like really valuable. And I don't think we can get away from what AI is going to do. Yeah, I think what AI is probably going to do Google. So
it already is for most people.
For most people. So what's AI saying about what you should do in a gym? And so actually from a health and fitness and wellbeing perspective, how are you understanding the impact of AI on your future membership database? We know full well that the younger generation are really shifting their behaviours towards food, life, exercise. So what does that mean actually coming through? How do you do a virtual class, but we're still physically present? How do you take AI health data and make sure that you're recommending the right thing? Or how are you, I suppose, rebuffing the information that people find through a chatbot that may not be completely accurate? So I'd say those are the 3 big challenges. But for me, I talk a lot about GLP-1 to a lot of customers and my clients. If you don't understand the impact it could have on the fitness industry in the short to medium term, I think you probably need to get on it and start educating people on it.
We had a GP on yesterday called Dr. Schiffer, and she was essentially saying that one of the tests they do to see if someone's like not being honest about being on GLP-1s because of the stigma is they literally will put their hand on someone's leg and say tense your muscle, and it won't raise at all because the muscle just has degraded so much. And I was quite shocked by that, because I just thought, like, that seems like such a like really like detrimental and worrying thing for someone's health, and it's not really talked about at all. And actually, as you say, it really is. Do you see gyms becoming more of a like almost like a secondary GP, in a sense that it becomes an education centre? And
yeah, I think the education's difficult if you haven't got the right professionals in there to educate. Like, let's just be really clear. You have to have the right people to say the right thing. They need to be qualified to say that. But for me, potentially, yes. I remember when I joined the gym, like when I first joined my gym many years ago, you had to have a proper PT session, you had to be screened, you had to have a proper gym induction. They invited you to conversations every week about how to do this properly, how to do this properly. Now, you can join online and go in. So actually not building community, not building education. And actually, with great respect to a lot of the fitness influencers, who knows what qualification they've got or where they've got it from or anything else. So for me, I come from a foundation where I got my training qualifications, I went to university, I studied hard, I've learned, I still learn. But I think some facilities have just become, like we said earlier, transactional. Here's a piece of gym equipment, use it. But actually, if you can do like, hey, while you're using that piece of gym equipment, why not tune into our fitness channel, and we'll tell you the actual reality of it with a person who's fully qualified. Like the people that you talk to, why aren't they running some of the conversations of the podcast you host and information you have through a gym channel while they're on a treadmill? Why aren't they hosting some forums or classes or webinars or seminars? Everyone has an app normally for a gym membership. Why aren't you pinging that going, hey, did you know this? Why not listen to this? Did you know this? We've got a class here. I think that education piece is really important for retention, but it's also so important to protect you as a club of the future and to protect your membership.
It does raise the question of like, where is the standard of everything in the fitness? Where is the standard of the independent gym at right now, and how do you raise it? And that because running a gym is hard, it's starting a business. A lot of people get into it with pretty minimal business experience as a whole, bar PTing. I think there is such a massive gap in terms of how people are kind of driving that, and I don't think there's a unified body really within the fitness industry either. I feel like it's a little bit,
it's definitely fragmented.
Mongolia, like early Mongolia is the example I use, where it's just a lot of tribes, and there needs to be this kind of unifying kind of body that comes out of somewhere. I'm not suggesting Gym Owners Forum, but I think it's more than that. It needs everyone to kind of come together and start pushing for that education. So I wanted to kind of pose the question on, where do you think really the standards of the independent gym are at today?
I think it's pocketed, as you say. There's some gym owners out there who have got all the right qualifications. They've been in it for years. They do the right thing. They care about the membership database. Their members are probably small, like as a number. But everyone in there does things right. They talk. They all know each other. There's a good community. I think it's the more, like I said, I'm going to go back to the transactional. It's the more transactional gyms, where you can join online and go in. And how do you know whether that member's lied or not about whether they've got experience or not? How do you know what they are or aren't doing? I'd say it's very fragmented. But what's really clear is that I think the gyms that thrive with good retention figures and a healthy community are probably ones that have got good educational knowledge. The ones that have yo-yo membership and you're losing 30%, chasing 30% every month of your membership number, it's because there's no relationship with anyone and no one knows what they're doing and no one uses. If you teach someone to do something properly or you give them the education, they're probably going to get more reward. They're going to be more loyal. I'm with you on the fragmentation though. I remember when I qualified, there was like 2 or 3 bodies. And actually, if you wanted to teach strength and conditioning, you used to have a NABA, a BORLA, or a UKSCA qualification. And you wouldn't be allowed near a gym or a barbell or anything unless you've done that. And the gym operator wouldn't let you teach it either. But I think as the industry's grown so wide, it's becoming more difficult. But everyone talks about it's the teaching of a lift or a class or exercise. No one's teaching health.
Yeah.
Like, again, back to the point, no one goes in and goes, you can go lift all you like, but if you go and eat 20 chicken nuggets in the KFC every night, it kind of doesn't matter, because while you may be using the calories, your heart's dying. Do you know what I mean? Or, it might be well and good that you're in here necking like four amounts of energy drink to get your lifts higher.
Yeah.
But did you know you've just like dosed like 800 milligrams of caffeine in, and that's going to be great. So it's a health element, I think, has dropped as a standard.
Yeah.
Like the general well-being and wellness conversation isn't there, and that's on. There used to be big industry events where people would go and educate fitness professionals, and you get leading presenters around the world talking about latest research and data. People would be going there and doing qualifications and doing professional learning and development. Doing all of their upskilling. Whereas now I think that doesn't happen as much. And that's maybe where it lacks, because at the end of the day, there's so many gyms, there's only so many people to work in them, and so maybe the standards have to drop until that comes back around.
I do think it was very previously. It was like going to the gym was very aesthetics focused, and as you said before, it's that element of just actually showing you care about your members' health. And I do think with everyone that's joining us today, like Tanita, like the body composition scanners, like actually that data, Brass Monkey with like the recovery. I'm not going to shout everyone out, but like the recovery aspect of it, like longevity and wellness is becoming so important. So I want to round it off with one final thing. If gym owners could today take one thing away to start this journey of care, what would you say is the best place to start for that?
Just some training with your customer service, your front of house people. Make them feel like they can ask questions rather than just be a bit robotic in answer. And secondly, get one or two of your members of staff on a higher level qualification. Get them to do one of the specialist education programs. Have someone in your club that can do that, because at least then you may only use them 1 or 2 hours a week, but it'll be so important to you in the long term. And it's an investment for the future. And you just save members. So those are the two things to me. But just make people realise they can act like humans, not like employees.
Karl, thank you so much for joining us today. That was lovely.
Thank you.
That is all for this episode of the PerformX edition of the Gym Owners Forum podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I thoroughly enjoyed all of the conversations that I had from the 2 days of the show. Would highly recommend anyone to check out PerformX next year and just other industry events in the UK. If you enjoyed the episode and you want more like it, head to YouTube or anywhere you can get podcasts and look for the Gym Owners Forum podcast. If you want some more quick fire and actionable tips, head to our socials where we're posting regularly about insights and just general tools and things we find from the industry right there directly to you. And if you just want to get in touch, reach out to us, DM us, email us, go to our website, reach out, and we're always happy to have a chat and a consultation on how we can help. With that said, see you on the next episode.